What is up, guys? Super excited for today's video. Like most of you, when Seiko released the new Seiko 5 GMT sports model line, I was really excited for not only that model line, but potential future model lines, and most importantly, the movement that they're using inside the NH34. So I was really, dying to get my hands on one of these to mod with. And there's a few things that, come with modding with the new NH34. I'll cover all of that in today's video. How to broach the dial, changing a date wheel. I'm happy to say that the date wheel is compatible with the NH34, NH35, and NH36. They're all the same. I suspected that, from Seiko being like cost effective, but also it's good for people like us because we're able to find parts that are already on the market. And they're cheaper and they're more readily available. So always happy when a manufacturer makes parts backwards compatible and also forwards compatible or whatever. Anyway, super happy for that. I'll get in how to install the GMT Hand. I recommend getting a proper hand setting tool from Do-It-Yourself Watch Club. I'll leave a link to that in the description. I did not use that for this mod. My plan was to broach one of the cheaper hand setting tools that I had. That did not work out for me, so I used two hand setting tools and just tried to put even pressure on it. I was able to get it set and worked, and I'll go over all that in the video. How to get the GMT Hand on if you don't have the proper tool. I do recommend getting one. I ordered one just for future purposes, but that's the only spot I was able to find the appropriate size diameter hand setting tool. So also I want to shout out the seller that I used, 2D Watches. That's who I got the dial from, so definitely recommend them. When I was searching for a meteorite dial, it was kind of hit or miss. Some websites are kind of sketch. A lot of these dials are coming from overseas. Some of the websites aren't even clear about whether you're getting VGW9 lume, C3 lume, silver indices or gold indices, or how to get a custom logo if you were to choose to do that, or print a minute track around the dial if you wanted further customization. So I definitely recommend 2D Watches. I'll leave a link in the description to their website, to their eBay store was where I found them, also to their Instagram. I highly recommend, if you're going to purchase from them, follow them on Instagram, give them a message before you even buy a dial, tell them what dial you want to buy, be very specific. They put up with all of my pickiness as a watch modder, and they were very helpful, answered all of my questions, and I can't say thanks enough to them. Most of you know I normally only use Seiko OEM dials, so this is kind of my first, dial that I'm using from a third-party supplier that's not from like Namoki's or Crystal Times or something like that. Definitely recommend them as a seller. Very good seller, trusted, very responsive, and answers all your questions. I don't get anything for that. I just had a very positive buying experience from them, and I think that's worth something. So I'm definitely going to try and pass that on to any of you guys looking to mod with one of those cool meteorite dials. I'll also say that if you're planning on using an aftermarket dial with very tall applied indices, that when you set the GMT Hand, you have to do a little bit of persuasion to it, is what I'll say. So to get clearance for the extra tall indices, I put mine on at 12 o'clock like I would normally set any hand, but it ended up at an angle like this to have clearance for the indice. But after that, I realized like I was going to have problems with the hour hand and the minute hand, and just further up the hand stack, you're just going to run into clearance issues. So after I had it on top of the, had clearance for the indices, I just jump the GMT hand over to the 3 o'clock, position where there's only a date window and not an indice. And then I was able to flatten it out some and get the clearance very close to the indice, like as close as possible without touching. That way the GMT hand looks flat and doesn't look crooked. Also, it has plenty of clearance for the hour hand, minute hand, seconds hand, and so forth. So I'll go over that in the video as well. Just kind of wanted to touch on that. But I'll go in depth in the video. What else? If you're worried about clearance with the cannon pinion being a little taller for the GMT hand, the hand stack is a little taller, and you can see that on the cannon pinion, but you'll have no problem if you're using an aftermarket case from Crystal Times or Namoki's. That's what I used. I did use a double dome sapphire crystal, so that's probably the lowest kind of crystal because it's domed on the underside as well. So I don't think you'll have any kind of clearance issues if you're using a flat sapphire or single dome or double dome. That's kind of that concern out of the way. Other than that, there's not much else. I'll get into any other little particulars as we go on throughout the video. Just wanted to get that little bit of housekeeping, done out of the way. Also, I have these shirts available on a website that I have now. So if you want a cool, awesome shirt that people are going to be impressed with, go ahead and follow the link to that in the description. Help support me and the channel and get a awesome shirt. I had SKX, Turtle, Samurai, Tuna. I have Oris Aquas. If you like the Aquas, most people do. What else? I can do the big design, the crown. I'm not gonna say the name, but I can do that. And all of those, the Oris Aquas and the crown loom up blue, so they'll have blue, which is what the watch would have, and obviously all of the Seiko stuff, which is my main thing, will have green loom. Check it out. I'll show you guys real quick. Look how awesome that is. I gotta say that the loom holds up very well all throughout the night, and you'll be pretty impressed with it. I'll also say that I wouldn't sell any of you guys any kind of junk or anything like that. I've washed these dozens of times. This is not a new shirt or anything like that. It's been through the wash. I can't even count how many times. I've double washed them just to make sure they're not going to crack, peel, put them in the washer, whatever, dry it, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't crack, peel, fade. The loom doesn't fade, anything like that. So I've tested them just to be pretty thorough with that as well. That's everything out of the way, guys. Thanks for watching, and let's get into the mod.
We're going to start by removing the date wheel guard here. And this is really similar to how you would remove it on an NH35 or NH36. So we're going to go ahead and break all 4 of our bolts loose. You want to do each bolt a little bit at a time and kind of go in a crisscross pattern just to prevent any uneven pressure to the date wheel guard. That way it doesn't bend or flex or anything. Now, once you get all of them broke loose, go ahead and remove your screws and set those aside in some place safe. That way you don't lose them. So I'm going to go in here at about 3 o'clock where the crown is, just because it's a good spot to get underneath the date wheel guard. But you do want to be careful not to mess with any of those GMT gears for the GMT function. But if you can get under it right there in that spot, that's a pretty good spot. So just like with the NH35 and NH36, when you remove the date wheel, you want to have a hand removal tool or something on that bottom plate there to keep pressure on it. That way when you relieve the spring tension on the wheel, it doesn't fling off there. That bottom plate is only held in place with 2 dowel pins, and it really relies on the upper date wheel guard plate to hold it in place. It's got some of the same holes go through it as the upper plate to hold it in place. But once you have your old date wheel out of the way, you can go ahead and install your new one. In this case, this one is a loomed date wheel with BGW9. And just like when we removed it, we're going to apply some pressure to that plate and then go ahead and do our spring. And you'll notice that the date wheel back spun there just slightly. And when it does that, that's how you know that it's set correctly. So now we can go ahead and install our upper plate for our date wheel guard. And it aligns with those 2 dowel pins right there. And then we can go ahead and get our 4 screws reinstalled. And like I mentioned earlier, those 4 screws go through both the upper plate and the bottom plate and hold both in place. So go ahead and get them set. And just like when we remove these, we're not going to tighten this up all the way quite yet. We're just going to go ahead and get it started some. Then we're going to go ahead and get another one in place. That one kind of flew off on me there. So I'll go ahead and put another screw in there. And you'll notice that I'm kind of going to the opposite side of the date wheel guard plate here. That way, again, it's not getting any uneven pressure applied to it. So go ahead and get all of them started. That's 3 of the 4 there. And then here comes the 4th one. Get it set into place. Get it started as well. Now we can go ahead and go back over all of our screws here and make sure that they're tight. They don't need to be too tight. You don't want to strip them out or, anything like that. They don't need to be too seriously tight or anything. Then I'm just looking from the side angle here just to make sure that none of the screws are sticking up or, protruding out from the date wheel guard or anything. And now I've got the crown pulled out all the way and I'm checking the natural date function of the date wheel. So we're coming up to 12 o'clock and it jumped like it should. Now I'm getting out of the danger zone here a good bit. I'm just kind of guesstimating there. And then I go half a click out into the date change position / GMT position. And then there's a good look at how the GMT function works, but there's a quick set there for the date. So date is working properly. But back to the GMT function for a moment. This is my first time seeing how it works. And it was really clever of Seiko to repurpose the day change function on the NH36 to operate the GMT. Most of these components would already be here, but they did add 2 extra wheels so it would engage with the cannon pinion and operate the GMT hand. But here's a good look at the loomed date wheel. So now we can go ahead and move on to the dial. And we're going to start by removing the dial feet. These aftermarket dials normally come with 4 feet on them, so they can be used for 3 o'clock position or 4 o'clock position. So I just cut them with a little pair of cutters, and then I'm going to use my file to remove the rest of the material. So once you have them cut, just go back over them with a file and make sure they're nice and smooth and not protruding up. That way the dial will sit flush. So now I've got them all smooth and away, and I'm going for a test fit. Now it will not fit over the cannon pinion yet. I'm just trying to get an idea of how much material I will have to remove. It is not very much material. It almost fits over the cannon pinion, but I just kind of wanted to do a test fit to make sure. So how I remove the material from the center hole and broach the dial is with this little file set I got from Lowe's. So I start with a round file, but I don't end up using that. I end up using a triangular shaped file to remove the material. But I'll go ahead and show you. So this is basically the difference. You can see those two marks there on the round file. I'll go ahead and point them out better. So this upper mark is the diameter that the dial started at, and this is the diameter that we ended up at. So to broach the dial out that far, what I ended up using was a triangular shaped file like this one here, and it worked much better than the round file. So I recommend doing that. So like I said, it comes in the same kit as the round file. It's very cheap. But after I finished with the triangular file, I did go back in there with the round file and smooth everything out. So now we can go ahead and install our dial over the cannon pinion and install the dial feet in. And look at that. Look how clean and professional that looks. You know, you just don't want to remove too much material, so kind of go slow and check along the way. But you can get it really close like this. It's my first time even trying that, and I would easily do it on any other dial for a GMT mod. So really happy with how it came out here, and it looks like this dial was made to go over an NH34. So I've gone ahead and installed the GMT hand here. My method was a little crude. I will show you how I did it with two hand setting tools. But here from the side profile, you can kind of see what I was talking about in the intro, where the GMT hand is kind of up at an angle. So it's got clearance for that indice there and all the other indices, but I do not like how much of an angle that is on, and I'm worried that it's going to hit the hour hand there. I put that on there just so you could kind of visualize how and where the hour hand would hit the GMT hand. But this is how I got the GMT hand on, using two hand setting tools, just like that. But I do recommend going to Do-It-Yourself Watch Club and ordering the proper diameter hand setting tool. Do-It-Yourself Watch Club was the only place that I could find the appropriate size tool, so I'll leave a link down in the description to where you can get one of those as well. And here at the 6 o'clock position, you can kind of get a better look at how much extra room there was there over the indice. So again, after I was checking the clearance here, I end up setting it to the 3 o'clock date window position, where I can adjust it and get it as close as possible to the indice without touching. That way I have clearance for the hour hand. So it did end up working out quite well, even with those taller indices. So it just takes a little bit of manipulating. So now that I've gone ahead and adjusted my GMT hand, I can go ahead and show you. This is me installing the hour hand, just setting it there at 12. Go ahead and push this on with my Bergeon hand setting tool. Now I've got the hour hand set, and setting the minute hand is very similar. And as you go along setting the hands, you want to just double check for clearance along the way. But when I set the seconds hand, I like to use this little tool I got from eBay. It just works best in my experience for setting the seconds hand. It's just much easier and more controlled. That way you're not sitting there fiddling around with it all day. And now I'm just rechecking the clearance here. I'm going to check at 6 o'clock here. And I'm going to go ahead and check at 9 o'clock. Then I'm going to go ahead and check up at 12 o'clock noon. And I know it's noon because my GMT hand is down there at the 6 o'clock position. And here I'm at 1 o'clock. And now I'm just checking that my GMT hand jumps by hour increments. So when I check the GMT hand, I like to set it to an even hour increment, like 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock or any even hour. That way it's jumping by full hour increments. So almost here at 1 o'clock again. There was 12 o'clock down here and then 1 o'clock. So we're set back to 1 o'clock here. And now I'm going to go ahead and go back around a full rotation. Make sure the date changes over at about 12 o'clock. Changes about 5 minutes before 12. And then recheck the hand alignment up there at 12. And also make sure that the seconds hand runs over the hand stack completely under its own power and has plenty of clearance. So now we have our movement side of things complete. I'm just giving it one last clean here. So we can go ahead and flip it over into the movement holder and get ready to remove the crown. So I'll go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. And this is the same way you would remove the crown on the NH35 or NH36. So basically the same movement in that regard. It even accepts the same crown and stem as the NH35 and NH36 as well. So now we got the crown removed. We can go ahead and take our movement out of the movement holder. And we can go ahead and set that aside and start on the case. So I'm going to start by installing the chapter ring here, making sure that it's aligned properly. Go ahead and install our crystal gasket. Go ahead and let that go into place there. Make sure that it's seated down properly. And we can go ahead and get ready to install our crystal. So for this particular mod, I chose a double dome sapphire crystal with blue anti-reflective coating. And I really think that the blue anti-reflective coating is going to look really good with the blue on the Pepsi bezel. So it's going to match that. And I'm also going to put a blue strap on this mod as well to tie it all together. So this is a crystal press I bought on eBay. It's you know, not super expensive, but it does allow you to have a decent amount of control. So when you install the crystal, you do want to rotate the case around as you're installing it. So got the crystal installed here. Also, because this is a GMT mod, I want to have a bi-directional bezel. So I went ahead and bent the click spring down. That way the bezel can rotate freely in both directions. And now we can go ahead and pop our bezel on. And there's a nice satisfying click when the bezel is in place. So now we can go ahead and install our movement into the case. And again, one more clean just before we put the movement in to make sure there's no dust. Go ahead and get that installed. And it looks so good. Really happy with how this mod is coming out. Go ahead and lubricate our gasket here, I used that lube up there in the corner, just silicone grease. Go ahead and get our case back on. Just hand tightening it for now. And go ahead and cut our stem. I already measured it there using my calipers to 13.17 for this particular mod. Go ahead and use a pair of tweezers to hold the stem. You want to do it up by the threads though, that way you're not damaging the actual part of the stem that engages with the movement. Go ahead and lubricate the crown gasket with more of that silicone grease there. And I like to use a Q-tip because it makes it easier to apply on one side, and then if you have any excess, you can use the cotton swab to remove any extra silicone grease. Now we're going to go ahead and make sure our crown is functioning properly. Go ahead and check our natural date change. Again, it changes over about 5 minutes before 12. The hands are lining up beautifully. I did adjust them a little bit more to make them a little better. So now we're going to go ahead and check down here at 12 o'clock noon. And I'm going to go ahead and jump the GMT hand all the way around back to 12 o'clock noon. So it's going around here, just making sure that it functions properly when the movement's installed into the case. Go ahead and set it back to 12 o'clock noon. That's aligning up greatly. And go ahead and check our quick set date while we're here. Pop the crown back in. And now I'm just going to go ahead and set it to about 10 and 2. And screw the crown back down. And I also want to make sure that the crown is sealing up against the case and is screwed all the way down tightly. So now we can go ahead and install our bezel, and we're going to start by using one of these adhesive rings here. And so just a quick tip, I do use multiple adhesive rings for this particular mod, because for whatever reason the Namoki's domed GMT bezel does not really line up great with the sapphire crystal. It sits below it quite a bit. Also, you can see there that when I was taking the top of the adhesive ring off, it was pulled there. That was because I didn't go around the whole bezel when I installed it. So definitely want to do that every single time you install one of these adhesive rings. That way it doesn't try to come up on you like it did for me there. So we're going to go ahead and install another one on top of that. I ordered extra of these because I've done mods like this in the past, and you know, it just never made me happy with how the bezel would sit below the crystal. I like it to be a nice smooth. So here's a picture I inserted here. You can see how far down below the bezel is below the crystal. So, you know, that's why I'm adding extra adhesive rings. And this is kind of like a tip that a lot of people know about and use. So for whatever reason, you know, if you're listening to Moki, please, you know, add some extra thickness to your domed GMT bezel inserts so they're smooth with your sapphire crystal. So now we can go ahead and install our bezel, and that was a total of 3 adhesive rings, just so you guys know if you want to use this. And this is the outcome we're looking for here. You can see how much smoother that transition there is between the crystal and the ceramic bezel. And now I'm checking the bezel action. It is quite smooth, but there's also enough friction there to where I don't think that it's going to be moving around a ton on you without purposely trying to move it. So really happy with the bezel action as well. It's, you know, not too stiff, but also not too loose. So came out great. There is a better look at that smooth transition from crystal to bezel insert that I love to talk about and love to see. So let's go ahead and clean it up a little bit more here and take a better look at this beautiful mod. Oh, I love it. It came out so good. Wasn't super smooth there in the beginning, but it definitely came out great. And here it is outside in some natural light. That meteorite dial is popping out there in the natural light. There's a better look at that beautiful transition from crystal to bezel insert. I put it on a matching blue Sharknado strap that is a naval blue to make that extra pop of color. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.